Hi, this is Roy Worley. Welcome to the interview show that brings on guests from all walks of life. Yeah, it's here that they tell their stories and delve a little deeper into their lives to see what got them where they are. So grab a drink, have a seat, and relax, because this is the Leo Effect.
When was the last time a short movie shook your emotions to the core? When was the last time a short movie caused you to rethink everything you stood for? When was the last time a short movie made you proud to be an American? When was the last time you felt the emotion to stand up and cheer after a short movie? The new short movie, I've Got Your Six, written and directed by Bill Foster, one of the industry's newest and fastest climbing directors, will answer all of those questions. Rarely has there been so much packed into a short movie that when you leave, you'll feel more proud of our American military veterans. A movie that was cast only with American military veterans will have you on the edge of your seat, cheering for our veterans and what makes America great. I've Got Your Six will be hitting the film festival scene soon. Be prepared to drop what you're doing and go see this powerful movie when it comes to your area. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Leo Effects. Today I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend. That's right, I am joined by the legendary Larry Hankin. How are you today, sir?
I'm legendarily fine. Guess is how to phrase it. I'm okay. Yeah, it's sunny here. I'm in Santa Monica, California. The sun is out, but it's cold. It's kind of chilly.
Oh, all right. Didn't know it got cold in Cali. That's interesting.
Yeah, neither did I. That's why I moved here. But I guess global warming has something to do with it, I guess.
Yeah. So, we're going to jump right into it, and I'll ask the first question that I always ask, and that's,
cool.
I don't expect you to give me a resume because we would be here for a long time, but can you tell the listeners maybe like what some of your real big stuff is that you've done?
Okay.
In your opinion, of course.
Okay, well, Friends, Mr. Heckles, and Seinfeld, Tom Pepper, Stole the Raisins, and Breaking Bad, and El Camino, the movie, and She's Having a Baby, that's a John Hughes movie, and Trains, Planes, and Automobiles, John Hughes movie, Escape from Alcatraz, Clint Eastwood, and just a lot of, just a lot of stuff. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he was asking me questions about stuff I didn't even remember I did, like I thought the first thing I did was Laverne and Shirley, but it turns out it's That Girl. I didn't even remember that, but now I do.
Wow.
So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff, man. Just a lot of stuff. But I didn't do it all at once. I just did it one at a time over several years. So to me, it's I just did the last one. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
That's how I count.
There
I
you
did
go.
the last one, and I hope I do another one. That's how I count.
Hey, that's perfect. But, kind of talking about your first one and going back to the origin story, if you will, I was reading that you studied acting at Syracuse University in New York. Is that true?
Wow, that's kind of it's kind of true and it's kind of not true. What it was is that I majored in industrial design. I graduated. I've got a degree in industrial design. So that's where I was at Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York. But I did minor kind of in theater in that I hung around the theater department a lot, and I was in several productions. But I wasn't in the theater wing of Syracuse University. I just would hang around there and volunteer, and I was kind of funny and good at these plays that they were doing. So I got, good roles. So I was known in the theater department, but I wasn't in the theater department.
Okay.
But I loved it. As a matter of fact, I got kicked out twice.
Of the
Screwing around with the
university or the
equipment and
the theater department?
yeah, of the university. Yeah, no, of the university. I was kicked out. I was thrown out twice, which I kind of now wear as a badge of, I don't know, coolness. But I mean, at the time, I was just doing what I thought was right, or for me anyway.
Right.
And there was a little argument. I was using, well, in industrial design, you not only have to, in a university situation, you not only have to design your products, industrial design, but you have to build them, or at least mock-ups. And so some of them we had to use sheet metal and forming equipment. They had Syracuse had a huge production facility, classroom shop with all kinds of woodworking, metalworking, drilling, sawing, whatever, tools, machines that the people in the industrial design department, I guess in engineering, could use at various hours of the day. So I was experimenting with the machinery. I was using machinery in new and different and unique ways. And that didn't go over too well. So they complained about me. You spend all your time at the theater department, because I guess they came and saw the productions I was in. The head of the Department of Industrial Design thought I was a wise ass.
Ah, okay.
So he threw me out. Because I defended myself. And look, I had to build this thing. And, I designed it in such a way that a lot of the machines couldn't do it in their particular way, so I had to invent ways. I mean, my desire was on the up and up. I was not selling the machinery or making, bobbleheads. I was just using them to make, what I was assigned to make, but I had to do it my own way,
Right.
So yeah, it was interesting. So that's I was in it, but I wasn't in the theater department.
Gotcha.
But I did hang around there a lot.
Well, what was it that made you decide to go from industrial to acting?
Yeah. What did? Well, to tell the truth, I never wanted to be anything or do anything. I was, although I come from a very lower middle class family. I always thought I was special, not in special like in the world. I mean, like special like in my relatives. My relatives, because I was the only child for my aunts and uncles and grandmothers and grandfathers for about 5 years. I was the only, the only progeny that, So they all doted on me for the first 5 years. I was. Bring me places and bring me gifts and all that stuff. And then that, I guess, now this is a coincidence, but it all came to a stop. And then that was when my sister was born. There's another child. And then all the attention went to the new baby. Mm-hmm. And I was like left out in the cold, which kind of made me kind of angry. And the other thing was that my birthday, the day of my birth, is December 7th. And that kind of ruined my young life because of the December 7th. People were celebrating the war instead of my birthday. And I didn't like that.
Okay.
I thought it was an insult.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was all going down the tubes, I had a birthday and had been a war and, people weren't paying attention. Yeah. So I think I got a chip on my shoulder because of the first 5 years. And then afterward, it just went down the tubes, So I just I had an attitude from then on. From the age of 5 on, I had an attitude. And I guess, me being thrown out of college was one of the accumulations of that attitude, I guess.
I see. All right, that's fair. And that's what made you decide to become an actor?
Well, that Well, and I see why I answered that because of the way that you couched the question. Yeah, because I didn't want to go to college.
Uh-huh.
So my whole thing, even though I was an A student, I was. See, here's the thing. I was a good boy. You know, I listened to my parents, even though they told me stuff that was weird. Well, they're my parents. I mean, they wanted me to go to college. They wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. They wanted me to take care of them, make a lot of money when they get old. I mean, I knew that. I knew that, you know, from the time I was 16 on, I was being geared for something other than what I wanted to do.
Ah.
So by the time I got to college, I didn't want to go to college. I told them, no, I'm not going to go to college. What do you want to do? And I didn't know what I wanted to do. So by forfeiture, I was forced, and all right, I'm going to be a good son. I'll go to college. Industrial design, because I liked art. So I went, but my whole idea, so when I graduated, my best friend in college, weirdly, I had no idea about this. We didn't know. My best friend was Carl Gottlieb, who later was going to write all the Jaw movies.
Right, yeah.
I didn't know that. But wow. So he was my best buddy. And we just, you know, I hung around. I was in a fraternity, and they didn't like him because he wrote at the time. I mean, he was always a writer. He just loved to write. He wanted to write for movies. I mean, that was his dream, I think, right out of the box, so to speak. And so he was writing for the school newspaper, and he hated the marching band, Syracuse marching band, of which Jim Brown was on the football team at the time. So the marching band would, you know, march during a halftime. So anybody who didn't like the marching band, by association, didn't like Syracuse University's football team or Jim Brown in particular. I don't know how they made that leap, but that was the association. And he didn't like the band and wrote about it in the paper.
Oh.
And he would hang around with my fraternity. Yeah, so he'd hang around with me, and we had seats up in the tiers, the top of the stadium, you know, but on the 50-yard line. Well, down below, straight ahead in the first couple of rows was the marching band right next to the field, you know, first, I think 5 rows or however.
Yeah.
But they were right down below us. And one day somebody said to the band members down below that, hey, you know, Carl Gottlieb, the guy who writes all these things in the newspapers about you, they even hung Carl from a lamppost and set him on fire in effigy. They made a dummy of Carl Gottlieb in the middle of the quad and hung him from a light post and set it on fire. That's how much they hated him, because he was calling them all kinds of names and stupid and blah, and they didn't make good music. I mean, so they really had it in for him. So they hung this effigy. Okay, and then the Saturday or Sunday for the game, somebody said, Carl Gottlieb is up there in Tor Delta Phi. That was my fraternity. He's up there somewhere. So the band turned around and started yelling straight up, pass down Carl Gottlieb. And it was passed up all the way through. Everybody turned around. And when it got to my fraternity, I was sitting with Carl, and they go, oh, is Carl here? Larry, Carl is with you. They want him down there. So they thought it was a joke, a big joke, my fraternity brothers. Hey, let's pass Carl down. And they start to grab him and, you know, like pass him overhand.
Oh, my
all
gosh.
the way down to the band. And they were going to trash him, man. They really had it in for him. They would have hit him with French horns. I mean, they were really bad at it.
Oh, wow.
So they turned, my own fraternity brothers turned on me and Carl. And the bond that we had was me and him had to fight off my fraternities. And that bonded us. Now, I just thought it was the right thing to do. You know, I mean, he's my friend. I invited him into my, you know, group on the 50-yard line, but way the hell in seventh heaven. But I thought, okay, you know, he's my friend. I got to, you know, okay, I'll fight my fraternity brothers. So that when they saw that both of us really were serious and they just wanted to pass him down, they didn't want to beat him up. They just wanted to, you know, join in the fun.
Right.
Instead of passing the big ball around, they would pass Carl around. And that was funny to them. But we knew if Carl ever got down there, they would beat the crap out of him. we knew that was serious. They had put out a vendetta on him.
Right.
So we were serious. We were going to fight him off. So they backed down. They actually did. They said, "Oh wow, we just stood up, formed a phalanx of two, and we were up on the last tier. So they had us backed against the wall. There was a wall, and then if you climbed over the wall, you fell 500 feet to the floor below. We were way high.
Yeah.
And we could look over the wall and look down. That's where we were. So we had no place to run to or run up or back to. So they backed down. So when I graduated, we both graduated at the same time. He was in the, I don't know, English department or whatever writing was about.
Right.
Well, he said, well, let's go to Greenwich Village. I want to write for the New York papers there. We'll get an apartment. So me and him got an apartment together, but I didn't want to be an industrial designer. I was an A student. I just didn't want to do it. That was all.
Yeah.
I was flown to, I think it was Chevy, GM, General Motors. Yeah, I was flown to General Motors. I was going to design future cars for them.
Oh,
but,
cool.
I didn't like their designs. I mean, I didn't know Carl was going to ask me to be his roommate in New York. This was in the last year, my senior year. I was flown there to Detroit. And I just turned the job down. I mean, I had an attitude problem. That was it. They would show me some designs of future cars, and I would poo-poo them. I said, well, they're not
Okay.
that great. And he said, I thought I was being honest. I guess there was a little anger hidden in there. But I was just saying, well, what do you think of this car? It was a little model, made of plaster of Paris and made shiny. It was white. Looked like a cake of soap that had been designed as a car. That's what it looked like.
Okay.
About 12 inches big. And I said, well, it's too, I don't know. I don't like it. And he said, well, the head of the department designed that. And I said, well, I don't care if he's the head of the department. He's a bad designer, right? I don't like it. So that set off our guide. There was about 5 of us being guided through, giving us the grand tour. So the next place they took us was to the executive dining room, which was really cool. It was like a great New York upscale hotel restaurant. It was beautiful. So I said, wow, man, I was impressed. I said, wow, we're going to eat lunch here? That's great. He said, no. This is the executive restaurant. You don't eat here, or you won't eat here. So I said, well, why are you showing it to me then? If I can't eat here, what's the good? I mean, why didn't you show me where I eat? Why didn't you do that? And I got really see, I'm getting an attitude right now, just talking to you. But anyway, so that kind of, so they kind of sent me home, and I knew, no, I'm not cut out for it. So me and Carl moved to Greenwich Village, and he wrote reviews of movies during the day, really local newspapers, not anything big, not even the Village Voice, but just, pockets of resistance newspapers, little ones.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had the whole day off. I mean, he was paying the rent. I was just, I got a job in a bar, sweeping up after 2 p.m., after last call. I would swab the duck boards behind the bar and sweep the floor, clean up the glasses and stuff. So I was doing that I would show up at work at 1:30, and I would work until, I think my building is on fire, I think.
Uh-oh.
Hold it, wait a minute. Let that pass. Yeah, wow. I didn't shut the window. Let me just shut the window. No, they passed, so I'm not on fire, but let me shut the window anyway. Okay. So, we just moved in, and I had nothing to do, so I would hang around we lived in Greenwich Village, and it was the 60s, so I started hanging out at the coffee houses where they had open Monday nights, open mic nights. They were free. You just passed the hat. So I'd be listening to these comedians, and I was thinking, yeah, I was a funny guy in high school. I won funniest in high school my senior year. So that was kind of cool. And I was in a lot of plays in high school. And then in college, I would hang around the theater department. I would get these funny roles. So I thought, I could do that. So I started getting up on Monday nights and doing a Monday night open mic night, 3 or 4 minutes. And though I was funny in high school and college and in theaters, there's a big, I didn't realize this until I got up on stage on Monday nights. There's a difference between being funny and getting up and getting laughs. That's two different worlds. I mean, I can be talking to you, maybe during this conversation I made you laugh, so you might say, hey, well, Larry's funny.
Mm-hmm.
But if you said, okay, we're going to be on TV tonight, you got 3 minutes. Go out there and be funny, Larry. You were funny on the phone. No, that's like a whole different thing. You got to write that. You got to hone it. People don't just go on, a late night show. They've honed their act for about 2 years before, right? They try it out. So I wasn't funny in the beginning. I was god awful. And to this day, I've heard recordings of me in the beginning. I'm not funny, man. I'm trying,
Right,
trying to
right.
be funny is not funny. It's awful. It's grinding, tense for the audience. So, but to this day, I don't know what kept me going back, except I do remember this one phrase when I got off stage, and they didn't boo, but they didn't clap. Maybe just a couple of, finger snappings,
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But that's rude. But I started getting better. There was a learning. I always said I can do it better. That was when I came off the stage and I knew I wasn't good at all. I mean, because I was used to making people laugh, in a living room or talking on the phone or whatever.
Right.
But to get on a stage and to get up, so I knew it was bad. So I would say, yeah, I think I can do it better next time. That was my whole creed. I don't know where. I mean, now I don't do that. If I said, okay, later for this, I take a pass. No, I would just get up the next week. And there was a lot of coffee houses. There was the Cafe A Go-Go and the Bitter End and just a whole bunch of the Night Owl and blah, blah, blah.
Wow.
So I started to get good. And within 6 months, I was opening for Woody Allen. So there's a pretty good learning curve, I thought.
Yeah. Holy cow.
In nightclub. Yeah. I mean, that was, I didn't think it was I thought it was normal, but I was talking to other people, and they said, no, that's pretty good. I mean, generally it takes you a year or two before you're opening for headliners, And then I was opening for, Miles Davis and the Kingston Trio, the Blues Project, the 11 Spoonful. I mean, just a lot of Ian and Sylvia, just a lot of headliners. And that was kind of cool. So that was, I'm into show business. Boom, there I was. But then see, again, the attitude, and my point of view of the world was really not my parents' point of view. They were very right wing. Just out of, I mean, they were bigots. They were very discriminatory and very closed minds. Weird. I come from a very weird family. My father was very weird, very strict, very martinet. I mean, he hit me and my sister with belts and straps and stuff.
Wow.
Oh, but what is it called? Something kind of punishment? Not military, but
Corporal?
Something punishment. When you corporal punishment. Yeah, he would beat us. He would beat us. Yeah, he would. Yeah, he knew. I mean, I could tell you how. I'll tell you one horror story, but I'll tell you one weird story. He hit my sister until my mother had to pull him away, and she was only 5.
Wow.
I mean, he just lost it. I was only like 10. Yeah, I come from a very weird family. So it took me a long time to get those tapes out of my head. I'm still working on it, but yeah, I used to be very bad. But anyway, so the alternate side of that, and the good side, was I got a very alternate view of politics, religion, drugs, sex, rock and roll. So I was really good at satire, just because of that anger.
Right,
which
right.
was channeled in a really cool way. What?
I was just
What'd you say?
saying, right, yeah. I could see that.
Oh, yeah. Uh, but it turns out, now I didn't know this, but when I finally started getting good enough for a manager to come in, Woody Allen's manager, and said, "Hey, you got a manager?" "No." "How would you like one?" "Yeah." "How about me?" "Sure, let's come up and talk." I didn't know who he was, but it was Jack Rollins, probably the biggest manager in show business at the time. He managed, Woody Allen, Sylvie, that was his big hit, Sylvie. I don't know, but he had a lot of stars.
Okay.
And so I didn't know that, but but I started to pick up fans in Greenwich Village of very alternate lifestyle people who turned out to be hippies, like Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Dylan, and I can't even remember their names now. They start to fade. But all the folk singers, that was what was big. The Pryor was there. Richard Pryor would come see me, and
Dang.
but all the alternate people. And so I didn't know that I was being hip and satirical. I just was being funny as I honed my act. But it was very pointed, and I didn't know that until I went to my manager, Jack Rollins, because now Woody was starting to, do television appearances, late night, Jack Parr, Ed Sullivan, big time hotels and stuff. So I went to Jack and I said, "Hey, you're my manager. You're Woody's manager. Why don't you book me in these big places and get me on television?" Because I was still playing the Village coffee houses, and I was opening for him. But that was all. I mean, I wouldn't do it in any television. So he said, "Larry, you don't have any television material." And I go, "I don't even know what that is, man. What are you talking about?" He said, "You curse on stage. You say, the F word, and you say you're talking about drugs and sex and rock and roll and religion. And I mean, you can't, it was the 60s. Lenny Bruce was being arrested for saying those things. And the only reason I wasn't being arrested yet, but I finally was that I was too obscure. I was in coffee houses and only opening for Woody. So I wasn't being advertised, and hardly any people reviewed me, or they would review Woody. And either they would say the opening comedian was not very funny, or he was kind of out there, or he's kind of risque. One sentence, and then they'd go on to Woody. So nobody was bothering me until I was opening for big acts, and then when I opened for Love and Spoonful, the cops showed up, and then that was it. I was pulled off stage by the police. They were throwing things. The students, man, during the 60s. I was talking about religion, and they started throwing their armrests. Those wooden armrests you see in movie theater, in the old time arenas and movie theaters. There's these wooden armrests on these metal chairs. Well, they come off. You can knock them off if you hit them from the back. I used to do that all the time in high school. You just hit them from the back and they go forward. But we used to just play with them and then put them back on. When whatever. So, but these kids were knocking off the first two rows. Were pulling them off and throwing them at me.
Oh my gosh!
And the Love and Spoonful were. Oh yeah, it was really weird, man. Because I was talking about naked people and God and what's that between your legs and blah, blah, blah. So the Love and Spoonful were laughing like hell in the wings and saying, "No, keep going," and they were saying, "No, do the clean stuff. Tell us about your family." Blah blah blah. So I finally just stopped and I said, "Hey, look. This is funny. Don't worry about it. I'm not against anything. I just, so they wouldn't stop. So I said, okay, I'll do my clean material. So I did my clean material. And in about 10 minutes, they came right back. They was laughing and da-da-da-da. So when I thought I had them back and they were with me, I said, okay, so now let's talk about sex, God, and, and rock and roll. And they started booing again. And now the guys in the back, no girls threw anything. All the guys in the back started pulling off their armrests and passing them down to
Oh
the
my
first and
gosh.
second row. So because they didn't have any armrests left. And they're passing them down and throwing them up. So then I said, no. And I'm ducking. If one of those hit me, man, they're worse than a bottle hit you. They were heavy.
Yeah, I bet.
So I as I'm ducking on the stage and saying, hey, stop it, because I didn't want to get off the stage yet. I thought I could still get to them if I talked to them. But no, they were throwing and booing. And then I see cops, a phalanx of cops, about 10 cops on the wall side of this aisle and on the aisle on that wall side, 10 cops. And they came up on both sides onto the stage, and they escorted me off. They, took me by both arms. I went with them. I mean, there was no struggle or anything. I just said, oh, what do you guys want? No, we want you off the stage. And all right, fine. So they took me off because the crowd was going crazy. And the Love and Spoonful thought that was really funny. But I called and then I was a guy in a nightclub one night. I was opening for the Kingston Trio, and he came at me with a beer bottle upside down in his fist, threatening me. He said, get the fuck off the stage. We want to hear the Kingston Trio. And in here, we didn't come in here to hear that crap.
Wow.
I mean, Lenny Bruce type of reaction, man. So, and I wasn't doing drugs at the time. That was coming in about 2 more years before. So I was totally innocent. I'm not Lenny. But, or Richie, or George, Carlin, So, because we saw each other's acts, we thought each other was funny, but they kept it up. And so I called Jack and I said, look, I can't do this anymore, man. I mean, I'm getting pulled off the stage. I'm not Lenny. I don't do drugs. I don't know what the hell's going on, man. So I don't know what to do, man, but this is not fun, man. So he said, join Second City. They do the exact same thing that Lenny and you do, and Pryor and George, but they own the theater, and you got 5 other people on the stage. So they'll throw the guy with the beer bottle out. Don't worry about it. So I did. I auditioned and I got in. And so I was in Second City in Chicago. And then a couple of us said, let's go to San Francisco and open our own improv theater, which we did. And we called it The Committee. And we were a big success. Compared to Second City. We were called rivals. And that's what got me to the West Coast. And the combination of being in The Committee and a hit show on the West Coast in San Francisco, an hour and a half flight from LA, and a round trip ticket flight in those days is $35. So
nice.
All these big time producers, what?
I said nice.
What? Oh, well, see, that's what got the big spenders and the big stars and producers and directors in LA. They heard and they read the reviews. You're getting rave reviews and being compared to Second City, but it's now on the West Coast. So that all of them would fly up to see what the hell is going on. And it was just $35 round trip. They see a show, have dinner, maybe, stay overnight in a hotel, spend a day in San Francisco and fly back. It was like a little, weekend.
Yeah.
Come up Saturday, fly back Sunday. But all the hit shows, all the directors saw us. So we were being cherry picked. I mean, it was better than an audition. They saw us in a hit show being funny in front of packed houses. So they would, call us on our, private phones. We didn't have any agents up there. We were just in San Francisco, So we were famous in San Francisco. So we would get jobs without an agent. They would call us to do radio spots or commercials, whatever. And then we, get called and go down, and instead of auditioning, they already saw us in the show. So we would do a lot of sitcoms, and that's what so finally I got an agent by then, and then everybody started moving down because they were getting more work and getting paid higher than just, being in an improv show in San Francisco. So everybody finally moved down, and me too, and there we were. I couch surfed for a while, got an agent. Jack wasn't my agent or manager anymore because he was doing stand-up, and I was on the West Coast, and I was in the committee for about 10 years.
Oh.
That was the best. I wanted to be there forever. I'd still go back to there and just be in that forever if that was the opportunity presented. Oh, improv was great, man. You didn't do it was like being a stand-up comedian, but you were employed regularly, 6 days a week in a hit show. You still were doing the same kind of stuff that you were doing that I was doing, satirical, really cogent stuff, intelligent, comedy, off the top of our heads, but in scenes that we improvised instead of, I never in all my life ever wrote down a bit. Like when I was a stand-up comedian. I was a stand-up comedian for 2 years, from opening Monday night open mics to opening for, the Kingston Trio and, all those big acts, Miles Davis. I never once wrote anything down. I never wrote anything. I still, to this day, can't write a hunk for a stand-up. No, I just would get up on the stage and I would tell my day, just like I'm talking to you, but with a comic bend. There's a certain, attitude. You just, when I want it to be fun, like even in a living room, I'll be listening for a while and then my mind will just start to see, what do you call it? Comparisons. I said, well, he said that a couple of seconds ago, and now we're saying this. Loopholes in people's logic. That's what I pick up on. Loopholes in the zeitgeist of either the nation or the city or the conversation. I can see where the logic is falling down, and the guy doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
And I'll call it. I'll just say it. It's funny. So and I can't get that on paper. I don't know how to. I just have to be paying attention to what's going on. I can remember it, which is what I do. I'd see something weird during the daytime, and I'd just get up on the stage at night, and I talk about it, knowing it's weird enough that it's going to be funny. I don't know. You know what it's like now that I think about it? It's like a log line. You know what a log line is? In writing a screenplay.
No, I don't.
It's the log line. Oh, well. It happens all the time. When you go in to sell a screenplay, because I'm writing a screenplay. When you pitch a screenplay, there's two things you have to know. You have to know the story. So let's say, what's your screenplay about? That's your story. You have to know your story. But you also have to know the log line. And the log line is, tell me in one sentence what your story is about, and make me want to read the screenplay. That's what a log line is. Like, I have a log line for one of the screenplays that I wrote. And this was told to me was a very good log line. Now, it was an old guy. The story was about an old guy who was a parking enforcement officer riding around on a trike, on a 3-wheel tricycle, those that in New York the cops have it. They usually have a boot in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3-wheeled motorcycles. Okay. So he's about 65, been doing it for 40 years, and he gets downsized and forced into early retirement because he's too old, and they got young people coming up who work a lot cheaper than him. So he's fired. Forced into retirement. And he's insulted, and he's got an attitude. He's about 65. He doesn't like it. So he... his logic, he's kind of addled about it, goes a little nuts. Not much, but, it gets his realities mixed up. He steals a motorcycle and he goes on the road. He's now become an outlaw. Because he was fired and he wore a uniform, he now has got he's going to be a Hell's Angel. He's going to fight the system. He's going to fight the system that kicked him out. That's his attitude. So he steals a motorcycle, Hell's Angels motorcycle, a funky one, and he starts heading to Fargo for the big motorcycle rally, the Harley rally.
Right, yeah.
So that's the story, is his trip trying to be a Hell's Angel, trying to act like a Hell's Angel.
Okay.
As he's going towards, so the movie is a road movie of an old guy, adult old guy on a motorcycle. Okay, so here's the log line. Don Quixote on a motorcycle today. Boom, now you kind of get it.
Yeah.
Don Quixote on a motorcycle. Yeah, that's kind of cool. In today, we updated it. Basically, what that says, I've updated Don Quixote, and instead of an old horse, Rosinante, we put him on an old funky motorcycle, and he's going to change the world, right? He's going to be righteous. He's going to be a Hell's Angel, and screw the cops, and blah blah blah. Okay, so that's a log line, and so that's kind of what a pitch is, and what I get in my mind when I think I got something I can talk about on the stage. It's like me saying, "Oh man, I just saw an old guy on a motorcycle ride by. Don Quixote on a motorcycle. I can talk about that. I can talk about that guy." And I would get up on stage, and it would be funny. That's all I needed. I can't explain it. I don't know why or how that happens. I just know that's what happens. I get this idea, and I get up on stage. So I never wrote anything. So I didn't have anything ever even. And then when you go into the committee and you improvise, you don't write anything. You get suggestions from the audience. And if the improv works well, you do it again. There's a certain section of the show where you repeat scenes to work on. You don't write them down. You just do them again, and then the director will say, "Yeah, but this time, don't be so angry when you're talking to her," or focus on the cigarette, lighting the cigarette. Get into that. Work on that for a while. Just trip out on lighting her cigarette. So you would get suggestions like that, but nothing written. So I would love to do that forever, But, hey, the pay is great, down here. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that's kind of how I finally got into show business, to answer that question a long way around.
Hey, I liked it. That's a good answer. But we're actually quite a bit over the show time, actually. But, I mean, you covered...
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
You covered so much. Like, that was such a phenomenal story. I want to say thank you so much for sharing that. Like, you kind of touched on all kinds of stuff.
I was just talking to you, man.
No, I appreciate that. That was awesome.
I get up on the stage and, more laughs in there. But thank you. It's great. I like doing podcasts. I mean, that's where I'm at,
Yeah, well, I'm going to have
from my head out.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get you back on for a longer one, maybe a special edition or something. But thank you again for coming on.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Ray, man. It's really, really pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, and thanks to all the listeners who are tuning in and checking out the Larry Hankin interview. I hope you enjoyed it as much as me.
Do you have one? Can I do one commercial? Do you have time for me to just do one commercial?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm opening up a new website. It's called thereallarryhankin.com. You can go up and see it. It's in beta now. We're building it, but it's up. It's called thereallarryhankin.com because Larry Hankin is owned by somebody else, and they want me to pay them a lot of money, and I won't. So it's thereallarryhankin.com, and I got a book on there. I'll have T-shirts going to be sold eventually, and paintings, and a lot of things about me and show business. And so go check it out.
Yeah, perfect.
That's the commercial.
I'll put the link for it in the podcast description too.
Oh, okay. And my book is called The Loopholes Dossier. It's a satire.
Awesome.
It's just funny stories. Loopholes Dossier.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get you back to talk about all this. That's what we're gonna have to do.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Ray.
All right. Well, we'll see you later.
Talk to you later, man.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on, and thank you, listeners. We will see you all next time. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, creatures of all ages, what an amazing show. Thank you for lending an ear and joining us. I'm the host, Ray Rumsey, and if you want to hear more interviews, simply head to anywhere podcasts are heard, Facebook or Twitter, and search The Leo Effects, with an A, not an E. If you'd like to hear me doing silly voices and making a general fool of myself, head over to Shattered Dungeons on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We live stream every Tuesday night. More projects are in the works. For now, stay tuned for more interviews. To book yourself as a guest, you can head to theleoeffects.wixsite.com/podcast or send me an email at theleoeffects@gmail.com. Remember, this has been The Leo Effects, and great shows require great listeners, just like you. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.